Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
After finding out what the wife had done, the husband did. Today's story has a similar plot. Enjoy it! So, I really think she was just trying to get you interested again, and it just got out of hand. I looked at her with regret. Would you do that, Emma? I asked. No, she said. I would drag you into our cabin and deal with you, and then deal with you. Most reasonable women would do that, I said. But, Cal, you know that Danny is not like most sensible women. Well, I'm her best friend, and I love her, but even I have to admit that she's a little spoiled. But you are partly to blame for this, too, Cal. You buy her everything she asks for and do everything she wants, so if she's become a little spoiled, you're at least partly to blame. You are the best thing that happened to her. Maybe she felt threatened. She doesn't want to lose you. There's something else you don't know about. Danny told me something before we went on the cruise while we were putting on our dresses before the wedding. She told me not to expect to see you often. She came on the ship for one purpose. You had to have an intimate lot because she wanted to get pregnant before you returned. She said you were talking about children and she wanted to give you a child before you were married for a year. She planned it all. She wants 3 children, and she thinks you should have them early in your marriage. That way, when your career really takes off, you can retire early, and you can both travel and enjoy each other while you're still relatively young. I wondered if Emma believed all this, especially after hearing Danny talk yesterday. I looked into her eyes and realized that Emma was talking about her dream, not about Danny. Danny was just telling Emma what she wanted to hear so that her friend wouldn't think Danny was just using me. Okay, Emma, I said quietly. I guess I just need a few days to get over it. I'm really mad at Danielle right now, so nothing good will come out of our meeting. Everyone talks about her like she's some kind of, Emma said. I really think it would be better for both of you to make up quickly. This really isn't the kind of thing that's going to make her feel better. I'm just too mad at her to even talk to her right now, I said. But Cal, you're better than that. It's just anger. You are hurt because of what she did. Believe me, I know what it's like to be wounded. I know how you feel right now. Remember why I'm on this cruise with you too. But in the end, your situation is better than mine. At least you have a chance to still be with her. I'll take that into account, I said. Emma, rest yourself. If you need money or anything else, let me know. Someone should have a good time here, and you really like that guard outside. Emma's eyes widened before she could say anything. Sky knocked on the door and then wheeled a cart into the room. I'll come back and talk to you later, Emma smiled. I noticed she looked at Sky again and shook her head. Okay, I heard the end of it, Sky said as she laid out our breakfast. Tim, she called loudly. He looked in the door. We need another chair. She continued arranging everything on the table. Tim returned a few moments later with another folding chair. She smiled at him as he set it down. She then stood back and examined everything she had prepared. Okay, let's eat, she said. As I started to eat my toast, Sky started talking. Emma is really very concerned about you and your wife, she said. It shows that even a horse like your wife has people who believe in her. I wish you would stop saying that, I said. Okay, sorry for calling her a horse, she said. In the old days, the worst thing you could imagine a man doing was stealing your horse. It's not that she's a horse, I said. You keep calling her my wife. Oh, someone's pain is starting to show a little, Sky said. I know what you feel, believe me. I was in the same situation. God, I wish everyone would stop saying that, I said. Darling, love is a universal concept, she said. Almost all of us can sympathize with you, because we've all had someone we loved, and it didn't work out. I know right now you think you're the only one going through this, but trust me, you're not. Cal, why do you think I'm here? She asked. Maybe you're on vacation, I said. Cal, this is not a singles cruise, in case you haven't noticed. There are very few single people here. This is a cruise for couples, for honeymoons and cozy time. I thought about it for a second and realized she was right. I only knew a few people who were here alone. Emma was one of them, and his friends were also singles, and there were a few couples where one spouse died before the cruise and made the trip alone to either avoid losing money or spend time trying to cope with the loss of their partner in a new environment. "This was supposed to be my honeymoon too," she said. "My parents threw a party for my 20th birthday. That was 4 years ago, if you keep track of time. One of the guests at the party was Marcus Clark. From the moment he entered my house, I have not seen anyone else. Over the next 4 years, we dated. This man became my life. Everything we did was because he wanted it. Every penny I made from work went to us. I often thought about moving to a big city to start my life, but Marcus wanted to stay there. He had all his friends, and he kept teasing me with little things like, after we get married, we need to be in a place where we can raise our kids right. Every time that creep said something like that, I melted and felt so happy. Unfortunately, I didn't find out what a scoundrel he was until the day before our wedding. His interests in life boiled down to 3 things: intim, beer, and his Dodge Charger. I was probably in 4th place. I think I only got that far because I supplied him with all the beer he drank and most of the intimate he got, and paid off the loan on his Charger. At that moment, I thought that I was the only one giving it to him. I came home early from work to pick up my dress for our wedding. I wanted to see how it would look in a church. I was wondering how the little glass beads that were sewn all over the dress would reflect the light when they took photos. I didn't want my wedding photos to be ruined by the glare from my dress. She looked at me as if this was supposed to matter to me. I really don't understand how women think about these things, so I just nodded for her to continue her story. Anyway, I heard it before I even got to our bedroom. He was panting and breathing heavily, as if he were a little engine trying to climb a hill. Then I heard him speak between breaths. He said, "Damn Susie, oh, the best girl in town." And then I heard my cousin, Sue, ask him, "Then why are you marrying Sky?" He told her that he was in a difficult position because he met me first. She was better than me in every way he could think of. In real terms, this is not true, but from the point of view of how guys think, she is probably really better for him. She has long hair and large breasts, plus she's not very picky when it comes to intim. So, I left home angry as hell. The next day, the day we were supposed to get married, I went and found his car. This car was his pride and joy, a bright orange 2009 Dodge Charger painted like the General Lee from the Dukes of Hazzard. I broke every window in that car. I broke every window, every light, and every turn signal, both inside and out. I cut his tires and took his chrome rims with a hammer. I dumped a 5-pound bag of sugar into his gas tank and then used a screwdriver to paint him. I left him a note saying that since I was paying for his car, I should take it, but it was in his name, so Sue could continue to pay off the loan for him. Of course, she had to find a job first. While he was sitting there in the church with our friends and family waiting for me, I left town. I didn't really know where to go. I had paid for this cruise, so I just exchanged his ticket, paying a large penalty for last-minute cancellation. But it was worth it. I used this money to extend the duration of my journey, and here I am. I was amazed to hear what she went through. "I have no idea what I'll do when this cruise is over," she smiled. "But I wanted you to know that I truly understand what you're going through." During the rest of breakfast, neither of us wanted to talk about anything too serious. We learned a lot about each other and discovered that we have a lot in common. We both loved different types of music. We both liked old hits from the 80s. We spent a lot of time this morning playing a game we made up. It was something like a game of search for truth, but in a different way. We took turns naming famous and little-known bands from the 80s and 90s. When one of us named the band, the other person had to name one of their songs. If she named a band and I couldn't name one of their songs, she got a point. If I could name one of their songs, I got a point. If there was any doubt about the existence of a band or a song, we would use my iPad and look it up online. By early afternoon, I was starting to catch up on the time she had beaten me at Monopoly. We had several challenges. One was when I named the group Lion, Sky confused them with White Lion and quickly named Wait as one of their songs. When I told her this was the wrong group, she challenged me. We Googled them to prove their existence. We even saw a video for their song Power Love. After that, we were too busy laughing to continue playing. We were also hungry. I felt my phone vibrate before we started talking about lunch. It was a message from my bank informing me that one of my accounts was empty. I could top it up by transferring money from my savings account. I also had another checking account from which I could transfer money. The first checking account was what I call the house account. This was the one Danielle had access to. I just smiled. If she runs out of money, it's not my problem anymore. I wondered how she was able to spend $5,000 in just a couple of days, but it was the last money she would ever get from me. And by divorce standards, it was pretty cheap. A few minutes later, Emma reappeared. "Do you need something for lunch?" she asked. She seemed really surprised to see Sky was still here. "We're fine, but thanks for asking," Sky said before I could do anything. Then she curled her lips into a smile. "I have an idea," she said. "Tea," she shouted. A few minutes later, Tim hurriedly entered the room. We couldn't tell if he came so quickly because Sky called him or because Emma was there. They both looked at each other and then looked away. "That was cute," Sky said, breaking up the teenage flirtation. "What can I bring you?" Tim asked. "I was thinking maybe you could go to lunch with Emma, and you two could bring us something," Sky said. Tim clearly liked the idea. Emma didn't seem to mind either. So, after a brief discussion about where they should eat, they left. They didn't even have time to close the door. A few seconds later, Tim reappeared in the doorway. "Cal, I asked earlier, the captain said you were allowed to go to the bathroom or take care of your daily needs. We're on a ship, so you have nowhere to escape. So why don't you two just go out to lunch? Stay away from the upper decks near the bridge. I think you won't have any problems. If anyone asks, just say you went to take a shower." Then he and Emma left. Sky held out her hand to me, and we went looking for something to eat for lunch. We met Tim and Emma, and I asked her to stop by my cabin and bring me a few changes of clothes. Emma agreed to do it, but she believed that I would have to meet Danielle sooner or later. Avoiding it won't help. She also looked at Sky very curiously. It was clear that she was having a hard time understanding how Sky fit into this whole situation. I could understand this easily. As humans, our brains work even when we don't want them to, trying to fit everything into place, even when we sleep. They are constantly sorting through the information we give them, always trying to find the right place and classification for everything and everyone. Now Emma's brain was trying to determine who Sky was and whether she was a friend or an enemy. We enjoyed lunch in a small bistro overlooking the ship's aft deck. There was plenty to see, including a zip line and climbing wall. But the funny thing was that we were so absorbed in each other that we somehow lost sight of them. After lunch, we walked slowly back to security. There was no one there. Tim was still at lunch with Emma, and the night guard hadn't come yet. On a ship this size, the rest of the security team was busy monitoring the ship. "I had a great day," Sky said, "but you need to go out and see the ship for yourself," I said. "I completely understand. I appreciate the time you have spent with me so far. You've done more for me than the person I'm married to. Thank you." "You're just going to paint yourself further and further into a corner, aren't you?" she asked, smiling. "Can I finish my thoughts, or do you enjoy finishing my thoughts for me?" I smiled and pretended to zip my lips shut. I wanted to say that I had a wonderful day and was looking forward to spending the evening with her, but I wanted to go back to my cabin and change out of my running shorts and top. "You know, your night guard seems nice too. Maybe he'll let us go out for dinner and a walk on the deck. I don't think we'll be sitting at the captain's table, but there are so many places to eat here." I just looked at her, smiling. She smiled back. "Well, are you going to say something?" she asked. In the last 10 hours or so since she showed up this morning, I've spent more time smiling than I ever remember in my entire life. "Oh, can I talk now?" I asked. "Yes, come into the conversation whenever you want," she said. Before I could come up with my witty retort, the night guard entered the room. "You know the doors are all open," he said. "Yes," Sky and I answered at the same time. "Oh, okay," he said. "Probably there's really nowhere to go." Sky looked at me, and I felt like she was expecting something. After a couple of minutes of rather strange silence, she turned and left, promising to return quickly. The guard stood looking at me too. She's a sweetheart, he said. I saw you two having lunch together a little earlier. I escaped while the other guard wasn't looking, I said. You mean while he was having lunch with that woman who came to see you yesterday? He asked. Good excuse. If you decide to go out later and someone else catches you, tell them the same about me. I looked at him in bewilderment. He returned to the outer room to watch TV. I realized that I had been so busy with Sky for most of the day that I hadn't even checked my email. I logged into my email account and found a couple of messages from my lawyer. He was confident that I could get an annulment. He would have the documents ready to hand over to Danielle as soon as we arrive at the port. My assistant dealt with the issues that I entrusted to her. The locks in my apartment have been changed, and all of Danielle's things that were moved to my apartment were placed in storage. We paid for a month of storage in the warehouse for her, after which her things will be sold. I was in the middle of writing another message when the guard returned. You have a visitor, he said. I could tell by his face that I wasn't going to like it. That's her, he said. Tell her I don't want to see her and send her away, I told him. He nodded and went into the outer room. I heard a lot of screaming and yelling and a couple of blows. Damn it, Cal, this won't solve the problems between us, she shouted from the other room. You messed up, I'm angry. I messed up too, but we have a problem. He reappeared in the doorway and looked at me. I shook my head. He smiled, and the next thing I heard was more screams from Danielle. I'll go to the captain, she blurted out. This is an emergency situation. I have the right to talk to my husband. A few minutes later, he reappeared. What a woman, he said. So, what really happened between you two? When you came here, you were a typical newlywed couple in love. Yes, I would be interested to know that too, said the captain, appearing behind him. We have more than one problem right now, and I think they all have to do with you. I gave them a brief overview of my relationship with Danielle. I quickly related the conversation I overheard between her and Emma. Then I explained what happened at dinner and what triggered my reaction. The captain nodded. We have reviewed security footage and spoken to many of the passengers with whom you were in contact, he said. Many of them think that I should let you go, but a small but vocal group believes you should remain a prisoner. Captain, are there any free cabins on the ship? I asked. No, but you and your wife are already booked into one of the best cabins we have, he said. Then we really don't have a problem, I said. I have no problem staying here. There's no way I want to share a cabin with Danielle. I would be grateful if someone could get my things from that cabin. I'll have someone bring them here while your wife is somewhere else, he said. She wants to meet me. I'm going to go up to my office now. I'll keep her there as long as possible. But I also need to ask you a favor. What can I do? I asked. You could ask your friends to stop, he said. It looks like your lawyer turned to several of his friends for help. They in turn turned to someone else for help, and I had to have a long conversation about you with the director of the entire cruise line. It seems like some very important people are supporting you, so I was told to handle you very carefully. I'll see what I can do, I said. About 10 minutes after the captain left, the guard returned to the room. Damn, I'm starting to feel like I'm more your secretary than a security guard, he said. You know the captain said you were free to leave, he said. Well, that's not entirely true, I told him. I have to keep a low profile so as not to irritate the few who think I'm a serial killer. You have another visitor, he said. I think I'd better stay in the room this time. I already told you I don't want to see her, I said. It's not her, he grinned. I need you to remain calm. Is that why the hell does he want to see me? I asked. The easiest way to find out is to ask him, he said. I nodded, and he called the man inside. As soon as I saw him standing there, I wanted to kill him. We need privacy for our conversation, he told the guard. No, it's not necessary, I answered sharply. He is here for your protection, just in case I decide to finish what your friends stopped me from doing last night. He swallowed and turned pale. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. And I have no friends on board the ship. Are you talking about those two men you fought with last night? If you're talking about them, then I don't know them. I have come to discuss a business proposal of a very personal nature. your wife has racked up debts with me that we should talk about." "I'm not interested in my wife's debts," I said. "When she tried to contact me earlier today, I ignored it. When she tried to visit me this afternoon, I refused to see her. Whatever happens between you two is none of my business." I took out my iPhone and pretended to show him the text. While doing this, I took a photo of him. "I suggest you talk to your wife," he said. "I'll be back at this time tomorrow. It will be better for all of us if we resolve this matter before it escalates." Then he turned and left the room. I sent a photo of him to my lawyer. I told him that this was the guy Danielle had been hanging out with in clubs. I thought this guy might be useful if I needed a divorce instead of an annulment. After some time, 2 crew members came with my suitcases and other things. I packed as efficiently as possible in the small security room. I chose an outfit for the evening and went to another room to change. The bathroom I used was not adequate. There was no bath or shower. I asked the security guard to show me one of the locker rooms that the crew used. I took a nice hot shower and changed clothes. When I returned to the security room, Emma was already there. "Cal, wow, you look great," she said. "Thank you, Emma. Did you enjoy lunch?" She instantly blushed. "Oh, Cal," I laughed. "You need to slow down, girl. You know, sailors have a reputation. Make him wait a while before you give yourself to him." She blushed even more. "Cal, we are not here to discuss my personal life," she said. "Danielle is sitting in your cabin, crying. Nothing works out the way she planned, and she has a really big problem. Perhaps only you can help her with this." "Then she's in trouble," I said. Emma looked around the room and noticed all my suitcases. "Cal, I only brought you clothes and underwear." "Where do all these things come from?" she asked. "Forget it. Don't you just want to go and talk to her?" "Why do I need to?" I asked. She humiliated me in front of the entire ship, acting like less than 48 hours after our wedding, I spent the night in jail while she spent my money dancing and drinking with the... "She let touch her besides?" Emma asked. My brain kicked in, and I realized it was best for me not to let Emma or Danielle know that I had heard their conversation. Danielle wasn't completely stupid. If she knew I was seeking an annulment or divorce, she would try to stop it. I'd rather they just hand her the paperwork as soon as she sets foot on land. "I know Danielle didn't come back to our cabin all night," I said. "It's not her fault," Emma said. "You really need to go and talk to her." "No, I really don't need to," I said. "If this kind of childish behavior is what I can expect from her, then I'm better off without her." Sky appeared just at that moment. "Where are our guards?" she smiled. "Oh, they're around here somewhere," I said. "We should probably fire them. They let just anyone in here." Sky was wearing a white blouse with a lace front. She was wearing a very tight black leather skirt that hugged her curves, leaving no room for imagination regarding her figure. Her legs were bare, and she was wearing very small high-heeled ankle boots. Her hair was styled so that the blue strands blended harmoniously with the black ones, adding tone to her hairstyle. She looked amazing. "So, your wife is back in your cabin and depressed, and you're going on a date?" Emma asked. "Fits me," I said. Emma looked shocked. "Cal, once again, I spent last night in jail while she walked, danced, and drank at my expense. I don't do anything that she didn't do first." "But, Cal, you're better than her," Emma said. "Okay, Emma," I said. "I'm doing this for you, not for her. Tell her that I will meet her after breakfast tomorrow." "Thanks, Cal," Emma said, smiling, and she turned to leave. She looked back at Sky. "Emma," I said when she was at the door, "stay away from sailors." She blushed again. "So, you have a lot of stuff here," Sky said. "Do you think so?" I answered. "I have ways of making you talk," she said in response. "But for now, I'm hungry. Call one of the guards to bring us food. I might go if they don't come back soon enough." I took her hand. "Or we could just go ourselves," I said. "I am free." She looked down at the front of my pants. "Not yet," she said, "but the night is young." It turned out to be the best night of the cruise. Moreover, it was the best night of my life. We had lunch at a restaurant, which was a little fancier than any we'd been to before. Several people looked at us as we ate. A good number of them gave me the thumbs-up gesture, but there were one or two who simply hid behind their menus and stared at us. After that, we just walked around the ship. And you know, this may sound sentimental, but when Sky took my hand while we walked, it was the most pleasant thing I've ever experienced. "Damn," I said. "Now what?" She teased. "My sense of time is terrible," I said. "No, it's more than that," she said. "It's like fate, we just fell into it. Think about it. I met an idiot, put up with him for 4 years, bought him beer, and paid for his stupid car, and got engaged to him. I did all this to end up leaving him at the altar and going on this cruise alone to meet you. You dated a gold digger for 2 years so you could marry her and go on this cruise to meet me. You're from California, I'm from Arkansas. If it weren't for such a strange coincidence, we would never have met." Everything was perfect throughout the evening. We walked around the decks and went into a few smaller, quieter clubs. For the first time in my life, I understood what it was all about. I felt closer to Sky than to any other person I had ever known. We ended the night sitting in our lounge chairs, looking up at the night stars and talking about our hopes and dreams. I walked her to her cabin, and as I turned to leave, she grabbed my hand and pulled me towards her for my first real kiss. Kissing Sky made everything I'd ever done with anyone else seem like a waste of time. It was much more special than just lips touching another woman's lips. It was like fire, like electricity, like everything I needed to survive combined into one action. The only thing I could say was, "Jimi Hendrix." "What?" said Sky. "Wait, you said you didn't like Jimi Hendrix." "Not anymore," I said. "He sings my theme song." "Okay, what's your theme song?" She laughed. "Excuse me while I kiss the sky," I said. "That's not the title of the song," she said. "It is called," I interrupted her by pressing my lips to hers again. This time, the kiss was longer and even more passionate. "I love this song," she said as we pulled away for a moment to catch our breath. I returned to the security office as if on wings. The guard sitting at the desk looked up as I entered. "Looks like you had a good time," he said. "Oh yes," I said. I set my iPhone to wake me up at 5:45 a.m. and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning, I felt great, even though I slept less than 6 hours. I felt ready for new challenges. I noticed a little stiffness in my back. The bed I slept on was far from comfortable. This was probably to be expected, given that it was just a bed in a security office and not a real bed. I rummaged through my suitcases and found my running shoes, shorts, and a tank top. I ran out into the corridor and then returned to the room. I forgot my socks and my iPod. I ran across several decks until I reached the track. I looked around and didn't see Sky anywhere. I thought about it and realized that we both had less than 6 hours of sleep. Yesterday was an emotional roller coaster for both of us. I started the day at my lowest emotional point ever. I was locked in the security room. My wife apparently spent the entire night clubbing with another man while I was there. And this was in addition to the fact that I had found out the day before that she was only interested in me for financial security. By the end of that day, however, I was sure that I had truly fallen in love for the first time in my life. So maybe I felt like I could fly, but that didn't mean Sky felt the same way. She was probably still asleep in her bed. I clipped my iPod to the waistband of my shorts and plugged the headphones into my ears. I was just about to start running when I felt someone push me on the shoulder. I looked into Sky's beaming face. Seeing her again overwhelmed me. "So you weren't going to wait for me at all, huh?" she asked, smiling. "I didn't think you'd want to get up this early," I said. "I didn't want to either," she said, "but I really wanted to see you," she mumbled. "What?" I said. It was difficult for me to look at her. She really was beautiful, and the strange thing about it was that it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and she was already so beautiful. She had just gotten out of bed, put on her clothes, and was already so beautiful. Danielle needed at least an hour to make her face and hair presentable. Sky was very unpretentious. "Should we just run?" she asked. "No," I smiled. "What did you say?" "I have ways of making you talk," she said. "For example," she asked. I raised my hands towards her threateningly. I can tickle you to make you talk, I said. That would require you to be able to catch me, of course, she said. Are you suggesting that I can't? I asked. Yes, she said. I think so. I will have a minute head start. You can't change direction, so we switch iPods. You should listen to my music, and I should listen to yours. Are you sure about this? I asked. I mean, listening to each other's music is a big step. It's almost like starting a date or something. She laughed and extended her hand. I gave her my iPod Shuffle, and she gave me her iPod Nano. I'll make sure you don't start early, she chuckled. Wait a minute, I said. If I win, you have to tell me what you said. What will you get if you win? You must kiss me like last night, again, and whenever I ask, she said. Then she ran. Watching her run away from me, I seriously thought about losing on purpose. After about a minute, I started chasing her. At first, I thought I could just rush forward down the track and catch her. But by the time I got closer, she started running faster too, and I wasn't a sprinter, so I got tired faster than I could catch up with her. I slowed down, and she relaxed too. I think I saw her smiling while she was running. I began to slowly close the distance between us. Every time I got close to her, she picked up the pace. After about 4 laps, I was only 20 feet away from her. But every time I started sprinting, she would also speed up. We seemed to be equal. Another lap, and I was only 10 feet away from her. I looked at my watch. We had run about 6 laps, and it was almost 7 minutes, so I knew we had run about a mile. This made me realize that the track we were on was a little smaller than a standard school running track. I usually ran about 5 miles, but we had a lot of adrenaline. Sky seemed to run a little slower. I think the sprints we did earlier wore her down. I was so busy thinking and trying to calculate how long it would take me to catch up with her that I crashed into her. She just stopped running. I crashed into her, and we fell together in a heap of arms and legs. Sorry, I said, and I rolled off of her. She just smiled and looked at me. Both lay on the rubber flooring as the sun rose. Kiss me, she said without hesitation. I complied. The connection was instantly restored. Like 2 magnets, we reached out to each other and connected. Sky's lips smelled like strawberries and fresh peaches. She persistently attracted me. I truly believed we would still be in this hug if some fat guy hadn't walked by panting on the treadmill. How many laps do I need to run to get the same thing? He asked. She kisses everyone and knocks her down. Then he walked past but turned to look at us. Sky, I said. Yes, she answered, out of breath. I almost caught up with you. If you hadn't stopped, I would have done it, I said. Yes, almost caught up, she said, but do I have to wait all day for you to catch me? But I began. But you lost, she smiled. Take it with grace. Kiss me. I didn't care about winning or losing anymore. I did what she wanted. Remember, she said. You have to do this every time I ask. Just ask, I said. But you should probably be careful where you ask. Some passengers already think I should be arrested, and I'm sure everyone here knows that I'm still technically married to Danielle. For the first time in my life, I really don't care what people think, she said. So I'll have to tickle you to find out? I asked. What? She asked. You should have told me what you muttered. Remember, I reminded her. I asked you why you got up so early to run, and you muttered something. Did you insult me or something? I said, I really wanted to see you, she said. I set the alarm to make sure I woke up. When it worked, I was tired and, at the same time, full of energy. I went to bed still thinking about how you kissed me last night. I was dying to know if it was real or just the magic of the moment. Kiss me, I said. She pressed her lips to mine and then started laughing. You're not supposed to, she laughed. I'm the kissing director here. I'm the winner, only I can do this. Sorry, I said. Kiss me, she said. We showered separately, of course, and met a few minutes later for breakfast. Instead of a quick snack like the first day, or something, she could bring me to the security room like the previous morning. It was a nice, long breakfast. The ship would be moored at another one of those small islands that dotted the area. That morning, this was actually the second island we visited, but we both missed the one yesterday. We decided that we would go ashore and visit some shops and spend time on the beach. Sky was feeding me pieces of her toast when Emma walked up to our table. "Good morning, Cal," she said. Hi," she said to Sky. "Good morning, Emma," I said. I guess there was a little too much enthusiasm in my greeting because Emma looked shocked. "Cal, did you remember that you agreed to talk to Danielle this morning?" she asked before I could answer. One of the ship's officers approached me. "Mr. Storm, the captain would like to speak with you when you have the opportunity," he said. "Should I go now?" I asked. "No, sir," he said. "Finish your breakfast. Any time this morning will be fine." When the man left, I wondered what was going on. "I should probably go and talk to him," I said. "Technically, I'm still under house arrest on the ship, so I should probably see if I can go ashore." Emma pursed her lips. "If I can't go ashore, I still want you to go," I told Sky. "Emma, have you been to the shore yet?" "Tim had to work," Emma said. "Damn, you two seem to be moving fast," I said. "We're not the only ones," she said sarcastically. "Cal, where are you going to see Danielle?" "Damn, Emma," I said. "I haven't had a chance to have fun since I got on this boat, except yesterday. And most of the time, I was locked in the goddamn security room. Yes, I'll go and see Danielle. I promised you that I would do this. I am indebted to you. I'll go and see her right after I talk to the captain. But don't expect a miracle." As I stood up to leave, I told Sky that I would see her in a few minutes. She told me to take my time. I went to the captain's office, and while I was walking, I heard the ship's horn or something like that blowing. This scared me to such an extent that I almost lost my balance. I heard it yesterday, but then I was deep below the decks in the security room, and the sound was not so loud. On the open deck, it was almost deafening. Looking around, I noticed that we were approaching a small island. The ship was too large to dock here, so passengers about to disembark would be transported on small ferries coming from the island. For the first time in a couple of days, I again realized that I was on a ship. It seems like with everything that's been going on, I've gotten used to it. I knocked on the door of the captain's office. The door opened immediately, and the captain and one of his officers greeted me as I entered. "Mr. Storm, I want to apologize to you," the captain said. "It was all a big misunderstanding, Captain. I'm fine. I completely understand everything that happened. You did what was necessary for the benefit of the passengers and your staff," I said. He looked at me strangely. "Then why are you suing me and the company?" he asked. I started laughing. "My lawyer is pretty aggressive," I laughed. "You think this is funny?" he said. "Look at this. We are being tried for everything possible, including unlawful imprisonment. Did you know that most of the time you were there, the door wasn't even locked?" "Captain, I will deal with this immediately," I said. "There's one more thing," he said. "Those men you fought with will be taken into custody as soon as they recover from their injuries. They have been identified as part of a group that has been targeting cruise ship passengers for years. They were involved in the beatings of several passengers, but also in several thefts. There are also rumors that they blackmailed several passengers and extorted money from them." "What about the other guy?" I asked. "What other guy?" asked the captain. "The first two were trying to get me away from the guy who was harassing my wife," I said. "If you look at your security footage, you'll see him. That guy who grinned and grabbed your wife's butt," asked one of the officers. I nodded. "We haven't seen him since the incident," the captain said. "Do you think he's connected somehow?" "He came to see me yesterday," I said. "He was talking about some business proposal that we needed to discuss. I think he should have come back and talked to me after talking to Danielle." "I'll have someone bring him," said the captain. "Oh, can I go ashore?" I asked. "Of course," said the captain. "All charges against you have been dropped, but I would appreciate it if you could recall your lawyer." A few minutes later, I was a few decks below, standing in front of the cabin I shared with Danielle. I knocked on the door. A few moments later, Emma opened it. I followed her into the room. "You don't have to knock on the door, Cal," Emma said. "This is your cabin too." "I'm so sorry, Danielle said sadly when she saw me. "I didn't plan any of this. Everything somehow grew on its own, and everything got out of control. Now I'm really in trouble." "So how does this affect me?" I asked. "I was locked in for most of the cruise." "I'm not in trouble anymore, but we are married," she said. "When one of us is in trouble, we are both in trouble. We must overcome difficulties together, Cal. Let's figure it out." I said, "First of all, why did I go to jail?" I paused and looked at her. She didn't seem to want to say anything. "I ended up in jail on our honeymoon cruise because you decided to act like a fool for the entire ship. You let some guy grope you in public while I was around. It was insulting to me and did not add to your reputation. When I went to that guy, you were standing next to him. You didn't rush to my aid as a wife should have done, Danielle. You stood next to him." Her head dropped. "Cal, I'm sorry," she said. "While I was locked up that night, you never came to me or even asked about me, Danielle. You were in the clubs on the ship, drinking and spending my money on a guy who hugged your fifth place. Emma came to see me that night and several times the next day. Emma and I barely know each other, but she came. I didn't hear anything from you at all, Danielle, until you spent all the money in the account you had access to. But, Cal, I was mad at you," she said. "This is not the way it should be, Danielle. This goes way beyond you being angry," I said. I still tried to keep my cards close to my chest. "By the time you decided to come to me, I already knew who my real friends were. You spent the entire time on the ship with that guy, doing things no married woman should do, especially when her husband is locked up because of her actions. But you hurt my feelings, Cal," she said. "I was just trying to get back at you, and things got out of control. Then I was so ashamed, and everyone looked at me like I was a worm. The only one who made me feel good was Eduardo, and he was worse than everyone else," she said. "This is not what I wanted," she said. "I love you, Cal. This was supposed to be the beginning of our life together. Coming on that damn boat was the biggest mistake of my life. I just want us to go back to how it was before, when we were just planning our life together. This is the worst honeymoon. Can't we just start over?" "Sometimes things happen for a reason," I said. "Maybe this was what we needed to show that we're just not right for each other. Daniel, you seem to believe that spouses should be together and help each other through difficulties, correct?" she asked quickly. "Absolutely," I said. "Then where were you when I was in trouble?" I asked. I waited for a while, and she just started crying. "So why do you expect me to drop everything because you did something stupid?" I asked. There was silence again. "Danielle, what's your problem?" I asked. "You talked to Eduardo yesterday, didn't you?" she asked. "Yeah, it was all I could do not to hit him," I said. "So he didn't tell you?" she asked. "No, we barely spoke," I said. "I think he wants to talk to me again today, but all he said yesterday was that he and I have to discuss something financial. So it's probably best for you to tell me," I said. "I can't," she said. "You'll be angry." "Okay, goodbye then," I said. "I'm going to the shore." "But Cal, what about my problem?" she wailed. "That's your problem," I snapped. "Neither you nor Eduardo want to tell me what's going on. It doesn't concern me, so why should I worry?" "Cal, it's not my fault," she began. "I wanted our honeymoon to be perfect. It started off so beautifully. Then you got sick, so we didn't make love that first night. I wanted us to have a baby on this cruise. I thought we could do it in 5 days easily because we wouldn't leave our cabin except to eat and shop. So okay, the first night didn't go according to plan. I just decided that we could catch up the next day. I wanted you to come back and make love to me before dinner, and then we could continue when we got back." I nodded, remembering how it all began. "But Cal, you didn't come back to the room when I called you. I sat here waiting for you for over an hour in my most beautiful, nicely lingerie, and you never came back to our room. By the time you got here, it was already too late. I tried to control my anger, but you know I can't do that. I probably should have talked to you, but I didn't. So judge me. Everyone at our table couldn't take their eyes off me. Everyone noticed how beautiful I am, except you, she said. Her face seemed distorted. You even danced with that ugly old woman and left me sitting at the table. Then Eduardo came up and asked me to dance. At first, I didn't pay attention to him. I continued to look for you. I think he noticed this and asked me if I really wanted to get your attention. He told me that he could help me make you very jealous and horny, so I said okay. He started dancing much closer to me and positioned us so that we were right in front of you. I saw the look on your face and thought it was working. Not only you, but everyone in the room was looking at us. Then he grabbed my fifth place. I saw you heading towards us, and I expected you to come and take me, saying that I was your woman, not his. But then those two men stood in front of you, and you, well, I guess no one else will try to get between you and what you want on this cruise. Then security grabbed you, and everyone was looking at me again. But this time, they looked at me like I was the pathetic one who had caused all this. Eduardo took me out of there and told me that I needed to get away from these people. They all blamed me for something that was actually something you caused. We went to a club and had a few drinks. After a few drinks, we danced again. Eduardo convinced me to do a few dances. He said that you would be sent back to our cabin and that you were very angry. He thought I should wait a while for you to calm down before trying to explain this to you. I don't know how many drinks we drank. He kept dragging me from one place to another. Finally, I woke up, and it was the next morning. I was in his room, and we had a night. I didn't know where my clothes were, so I took a sheet and went back to our cabin. The next day, I went out on deck, and most of the people I encountered weren't talking to me. Even the crew members were polite to me but cold. Eduardo tried to talk to me, but I didn't talk to him. I spent a lot of money that night, and I remember that he persuaded me to withdraw several amounts. But when I tried to use our bank card yesterday, it was empty. Eduardo asked me for money. I tried to explain to him that I don't have them. Then he started trying to persuade me to ask you for more money. When I refused, Cal, he showed me the video file on his laptop. It was me with a lot of men, Cal. He says if I don't get him $20,000, he'll post the video on the internet. All my friends will see this while I was sleeping. He looked through my phone and got my entire contact list. Everyone is there, including my parents, she said. He says he will send the video to everyone, Cal. We have to do something. If this video goes viral, it will embarrass both of us. We're married, you know. Then I did a really stupid thing. I told him that you can easily get more than $20,000. It will be nothing, she continued. So he decided to talk to you since you weren't talking to me. Now he wants $50,000, Cal. Please give him the money. I swear to you, I will never let this happen again. I've never cheated on you in all the time we've been dating. I really need to take anger management classes or something. I'm so sorry, Cal. I just stood there, looking at her. I tried my best not to smile, like the conversation with Emma that revealed to me that she had been cheating on me before the cruise and throughout our relationship. I anticipated and recorded this conversation on my iPhone. I knew she was probably lying again, but I didn't care. It was one more piece of evidence that could be used against her if I needed a divorce. Danielle, I have a question for you, I said as she sat on the bed, sobbing. I looked at her and realized several things. First, Danielle had all the qualities that made her attractive to a certain type of man, but that was just appearance. Her beauty was largely the result of makeup and even some plastic surgery. Like I said, she had a nose job, a lip job, and even after all that, sitting there on the bed, she wasn't as attractive as Sky had just woken up that morning. The second thing I realized was that Danielle sitting in front of me, sobbing and miserable, barely touched me. Any love I once felt for her, if there ever was any, was gone. I actually have 2 questions, I said. The first is whether I still love you, I said, and the answer is yes, Cal. I've never loved anyone else. The second question is whether I regret getting angry with you and losing control. The answer to this question is also yes. These are not my questions, I said. My first question is, since you have done absolutely nothing for me in the last 2 days while I was in trouble, why do you expect me to lift my finger for you now? She opened her mouth in shock. She had a hard time believing that I wouldn't give up everything and do whatever she wanted, like I always did before. She didn't say anything, but I could tell her mind was trying to come up with a convenient lie or a way to make this all my fault. My second question, I continued while she was still trying to comprehend the first. My second question is, should we even be married to each other? Since we boarded the ship, you've had a night with, I don't know how many men, but none of them were me. This happened less than 2 days after our wedding. Why should I even consider spending the rest of my life with someone like you? But Cal, we can overcome this. I know we can. And we can have intim right now. These guys meant nothing. There was nothing special about it. I don't even remember them or who they are, she said plaintively. So now you want me to risk contracting a disease just to make you feel better? I asked. I have a lot to think about. Maybe I'll see you later. As I left the cabin, I heard Danielle asking me where I was going. Emma was waiting for me outside. Cal, where are you going? Emma asked. She knows what she did. Can't you cut her some slack? She's really sorry. She sees what she can lose, that's why she cries like a baby. She loves you as much as ever, Emma pleaded. Wow, Emma, I said. You really phrased it correctly. What do you mean? She asked. I mean you put it in a way that not only defends what your friend wants but also doesn't lie to me. We both know how Danielle really feels about me. We both know how she always felt about me, don't we? Emma looked down. So is it bad that I moved on and found someone who actually cares about me? I asked her. What do you mean? She asked. Dan, her voice trailed off as she said it. See you later, Emma, I said. I headed to the security room to change clothes. Along the way, I noticed someone hiding in the corridor a few aisles away. It was Eduardo. He saw me and looked around as if he was hiding from someone or something. You made a decision, he said. When can you get the money? I already have them, I said. All I would have to do is transfer money from one account to another. Well, hurry up and do it, he said. I have urgent business elsewhere. He acted like he was doing me a favor. Listen, don't let me keep you, I said. I'm not going to give you a damn thing. He looked shocked. What do you mean? He asked. You really don't want your wife to be exposed on the internet for everyone to see, do you? The only time I would care, I said with an ominous glint in my eyes, would be if I intended to stay married to her. If that were the case, you should be worried because I would have broken your 5th place just like your 2 friends. He took a step back. So just do what you're going to do. $25,000, he said. I just shook my head and headed to the security office. $20, he asked. Isn't your wife's good name worth $115,000? There are hard-working people who work their butts off every day and barely make $55,000 a year, I said sharply. Why should I give you $115,000 so you don't tell the world that you seduced some woman? I wouldn't give you $5 and a Slurpee coupon to protect her good name. Look for another fool, you'll regret this, he said. Why should I regret this? I asked. Actually, you work for me, fool. You post your video and it will only make it easier for me to divorce her stupid 5th place. I should probably pay you to let him out with that. I walked away, leaving him standing there. I changed into a loose shirt to keep cool in the heat and a pair of long shorts. I grabbed my sunglasses and some sunscreen and headed out to find Sky. An hour later, Sky and I were sitting in sun loungers on the beach. We saw a ship moored further out in the ocean but enjoyed the sun and each other's company. We drank fruity drinks with deceptively high levels of alcohol and laughed at the antics of the crabs and tourists. One person seemed especially funny to us. What makes a 50-year-old accountant with a beer belly and no coordination think he can serve for par ale because a 20-year-old local without an ounce of body fat tells him it's easy? Luckily, no one was hurt during a day of action-packed adventures. Later, we got up and walked along the embankment, holding hands, browsing the shops, and buying a few souvenirs. We returned to the ship after a very calm day to find the ship in turmoil. As soon as we boarded, one of the security staff called me aside. I immediately thought that the captain had not had time to inform them that I was allowed to move freely, I said. Mr. D, sir, the security officer said, you need to see the captain as soon as possible. I thought I was acquitted, I said. He looked at me as if I was behind the times. It seems like a lot has changed in the last few hours. Those guys you beat up were convicted of a number of crimes on this ship and others. That guy who danced with your wife was also involved in several crimes. The ship's crew, local authorities, the cruise line, and the U.S. government are searching for him. Looks like someone sent a photo of him and he was recognized. I sent a photo of his to my lawyer, I said. I wanted him to be able to know him if I needed him for a divorce. Well, your photograph has raised alarm bells among the authorities, he said. Your wife also has a problem. Several crew members and passengers saw it on the internet. Rumors spread throughout the ship. Luckily for us, we're heading home tonight. We'll be in Los Angeles by this time tomorrow. There's a formal farewell dance tonight. The captain has asked that your wife remain in her cabin for the remainder of the cruise. Many passengers are outraged by her behavior. The captain was hoping you could help sort it out. I took Sky's hand and headed to the bridge to find the captain. He asked me when was the last time I saw Eduardo. I told him about our last meeting and my refusal to pay. It seems Eduardo jumped ship with one of the shore parties and has long since disappeared, I said. I sent the captain the photo Eduardo took so he could send it to all ships and local authorities. That way, they can recognize him. As a final blow, it appears that Eduardo has posted photos and videos of Danielle online as promised. I didn't know if he sent them to her contacts or not, I said. The captain expressed regret for any humiliation or trouble this may have caused. I shrugged to show that we have no hard feelings. I would like you to join my dinner table tonight for a formal dance, he said. I nodded. And please, bring your girlfriend, he added. A few hours later, I asked Sky if she wanted to eat dinner at the captain's table. Who will I sit with? She asked. With me, of course, I said. In that case, let me see what I can wear, she smiled, kissing me. I became more and more glad that somehow I lost that bet. When dinner time approached, I returned to my cabin. I knocked on the door, Emma let me in. Danielle curled up on the bed, she looked terrible. She's afraid to come out and show her face, Emma said. You look good, I told Emma. Tim and I will go out tonight since he doesn't have a prisoner to guard, she said, laughing. Me too, I said. I'm going to enjoy dinner and I will sit at the captain's table again. Who? She laughed. They wouldn't let me in there. Danielle said from her corner, all those boring old people refused to let me sit there after the night you got arrested. To hell with them. Why would you want to be with them, Daniel? It seemed important to you to sit there the night we did it, I said. Well, why can't you stay with me, she said. We need to talk about what we're doing and how we're going to handle it when we get home tomorrow. Tomorrow night, doesn't it matter to you, she asked. My parents don't even want to talk to me. You have to explain to them that it's not my fault. They love you, they'll listen to you, Cal. And what would we do if our friends saw this video? None of this concerns me, Danielle, I said. Cal, ever since this started, you've been angry with me. I see this because when you're angry, you call me Danielle as if I'm a stranger. You haven't called me Danny since this started. We need to decide how we will deal with this. I have an idea, but you won't like it. Remember that banking job you turned down in Seattle? There's also one in Boston. We could start from scratch where no one knows us. Emma, you could move there too, Danny. There's something you should know, Emma said. What? Danielle asked. I'm not coming home, Emma said. Tim asked me to move into his cabin and stay on the ship with him. He's going to get me a job on the crew. We take each other pretty seriously. I thought that since you got married, I still wouldn't be able to pay for our apartment myself, so don't worry about what I do. I'm home now, that's great, Emma said sharply. Thank you for warning me. Either way, it doesn't matter. Cal and I are the ones who have to solve this problem. Bon voyage, Emma. Well, I think you can think about it for a while, I said. I'm going to dinner. I left them both in the cabin. I knocked on the door to Sky's cabin, but no one answered. I texted her, and she said she would be a little late for dinner but would meet me there. I went to the main restaurant. As I walked up to the table and sat down, I noticed several couples who were there the first time Danielle and I sat. Most of them greeted me warmly and said they were glad I was back. One woman told me that it's better to be alone and that it's actually good that I learned so quickly what type of woman Danielle is. The McBrides were there too. Mrs. McBride told me that they complained to the captain when I was arrested. I was sure I knew this name from somewhere. I suddenly realized that she and her husband owned a large stake in the company I worked for. I've seen them at shareholder meetings several times. She told me to save a dance for her because she was sure that many women there would want to dance with me. I thanked her for her kindness and said that I was sure the women on the ship were mostly already occupied. Don't underestimate yourself, honey, she said. You're a young, handsome man. You have a great job and a great future ahead of you. You just feel bad because you chose the wrong woman. She pointed to the woman who was slowly crossing the floor as she approached. I stood up, and my jaw dropped. Her black and blue hair was neatly pulled back and had glitter in it. She wore a very beautiful shoulderless dress that was a very dark blue, both feminine and very form-fitting. It was difficult for me to look away from her as she approached us. Mr. Storm, she said. May I ask you to dance? She made a small curtsy. All eyes in the hall were focused on us. No music, Sky, I said. She raised one hand, and the DJ played a CD. I chose this song especially for us, she said. I recognized the song immediately when she led me onto the dance floor. It was Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Jefferson Starship, one of those 80s rock ballads that always played at the end of 80s movies. But it didn't matter, it fit. I took her hand, and we went out onto the dance floor. I held her very close to me, and we spun and spun. We were soon joined by several other couples, including Tim, the security guard, and Emma, who winked at me and shook her head. No chance, Emma? I asked, walking past us. I shook my head. After a few dances, we sat down at the table. I introduced Sky to everyone present, and we spent a pleasant evening talking and listening to others talk about their experiences during the 5-day trip. We missed most of it, Sky said. Then we'll just have to do another cruise, I told her. She asked. I looked at her as if she had gone crazy. Of course we are, I said. Do you think I'm just kissing someone like that? She just smiled and looked at me. Between the main course and dessert, the captain took me aside and told me that Eduardo had not yet been caught. Local police were unable to find him anywhere in the city. He has been seen several times, and they are confident that he will not be able to leave the island. After dinner, Sky and I took our usual walk to Stargaze and just enjoyed the evening. As we approached the stern of the ship, we heard music from one of the clubs. I just took Sky into my arms, and we started dancing to this music. What will happen now? She asked. Well, normally this would be the part where I sweep you off your feet, I said, but people don't do that anymore. I meant us, fool, she said. What will happen to us? As I was preparing to say what I had been thinking about all evening, a voice interrupted us. What will happen, homewrecker? Is that my husband will come back to our cabin with me so we can sort this mess out. It was Danielle. She was really angry. I see what's happening, she blurted out. I became a victim, and you use it as an excuse to cheat, Cal. I expected more from you. Is this your philosophy, an eye for an eye? I've had a night with others, so you can do it too? Is this how we will conduct our marriage? I just smiled at her. Danielle, I really don't think we'll be married much longer, I said. She looked like she'd been hit in the face with a brick. She started walking towards us. What the hell do you mean, Cal? She blurted out. When I talked to Emma, she told me that you have a little friend, and after what happened to me, even if it wasn't my fault, I thought you could indulge in a little romance on the ship to soften the blow of my actions a little. But I never agreed to leave our marriage. I think I can really appreciate a little spice in our lives, but there's no way I'm giving up on you. And there really is no comparison between me and her. You'd have to be crazy to choose her over me. She can't even wear my bra, let alone fit into it. Danielle, that's the problem with you, I said softly. You only see things the way you want to see them. Sky has already surpassed you in many ways, and you don't even begin to understand it. I'm just not the kind of person who wants to be with someone who needs some spice on the side. If I'm not enough for you, we shouldn't be together. And let's face it, you don't love me, and I don't love you. What do you mean I don't love you? She asked. I raised my finger in silence and took my iPhone out of my pocket. I held the phone up so she could hear it and put it on speaker. Emma, why are you looking at me like that? Danielle's voice came from the phone. Damn it, it's not my fault. I dated so many guys who only wanted one thing that I thought it was time for me to get something in return, the recorded Danielle said. Danielle's eyes popped out of her head. Where are you from? She began. What do you mean you still haven't stopped sleeping with other guys, huh? Emma's recorded voice continued. What I do when he's not around is none of his business, the recorded Danielle said, but the real Danielle faltered, realizing she was in trouble. Damn it, Emma, the recorded Danielle said. When I'm done with it, I'll try to arrange it so you can have it. I just want to live my life and have fun. I just want to have what I want, and I don't want to work like a slave to get it. I saw my chance and took it, Cal. I was just talking, Danielle said. I was joking with Emma. It didn't mean anything. I love you, you know it. I took Sky's arm, and we left. So, where are we? I asked her. Cal, I'm not going to take this lying down. Danielle shouted behind us. I won't give you a divorce. I'll make it worse. I'll hire a lawyer and take every damn penny you have. She continued screaming until we were far enough away that we couldn't hear her. So, what did you mean? Sky asked. Well, I have a big apartment in California, I began. It's really too big for one person. I would love it if someone moved in with me. I'm really in no rush to go home. Home, to Arkansas, she said. I could probably consider it if the offer was attractive enough. You could go back to school and decide what you want to do, I suggested. It sounds tempting, she said, but how will I pay for it? You've been taking care of your useless boyfriend for years, she said, laughing. I'll take care of you for a while, I said. This is starting to sound good. What about the car? She asked. What car? I asked. Your ex's Charger. I'm sure he's already talked some woman into fixing it. We'll take a road trip, I said. We'll drive through your hometown, and I'll race his Charger and win. My Mustang will beat his Charger. Okay, she said, looking at me seriously. You're not going to force me to have intimate with you, are you? Of course not, I said. It seems to me that even her kisses would be enough, at least for a while. Well then, I won't go, she said. Why would I live with a man I don't have a night with? Okay, if I have to, I said ironically. I'll do this, but only for you and only because I love you, Sky. Yes, I actually said it, I continued. I was the first to say it this time. I really felt it, and I knew it was true. I finally understood what love is. I love you too, she said. I've loved you since the first time we ran together. That's why I just stopped so that you'd crash into me and we'd meet. I just knew there was something special between us. She just stood there, smiling at me. But Cal, we can't do anything until you at least start divorce proceedings, she said. And I really want this. Really, a long time ago. So, tomorrow evening, I said. My lawyer is 90% sure the annulment will go through. I sent him a copy of the recording that I played. I've also uploaded a copy of that video. The judge will likely make a decision by tomorrow evening. Danielle will be served notice of the impending annulment as soon as she disembarks the ship tomorrow afternoon. The next afternoon, Sky and I left the ship and carried our bags to the parking structure. We were among the first to leave. Sky only had 2 suitcases. Her luggage easily fit in the trunk of my Mustang while mine was in the back seat. Watching from the parking lot, we saw Emma hug Danielle goodbye. Danielle began walking down the ramp, dragging her suitcase, while a couple of sailors carried her other bags. When she reached street level, there was a girl waiting for her. She looked like a student, seemed bored, and I think she was chewing gum. Danielle looked at her and nodded her head. The girl handed her a folder with documents. As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Danielle sitting on her suitcase, crying. Emma ran to console her. A few days later, just as Sky and I were heading out on our trip, I got a call from Danielle. She lived again with her parents and was unhappy. She begged me to reverse the annulment and give her another chance. I laughed so hard I couldn't hold the phone. Sky and I went to Benton, Arkansas. While we were there, I met her parents. We drove around town until we came across an orange Dodge Charger with a General Lee paint job. All the headlights were still broken, and the paint was scratched, but it appeared to be in good condition. The guy driving looked like he hadn't shaved in days and seemed out of sorts. There was a crowd of guys around him, shouting and supporting the idea of the race. I assumed they were his friends. He didn't see Sky in the car next to me. We were standing at a traffic light. When the light turned red, we both took off. It wasn't even a race. I beat him to the next traffic light by more than 2 car lengths. Cool car, he said. Hey, Bubba, Sky said mockingly. See you, Sky, and I feel great. We got married as soon as the annulment was completed. Danielle tried to block it. She told the judge that we had already had an intim, so the marriage was consummated. I reminded her that we didn't really do this after we got married. The judge also had a copy of all my evidence. The judge granted the annulment. He told Danielle that the recorded conversation alone would be enough to convince him, especially since Emma signed an affidavit confirming that the conversation actually took place. Eduardo was eventually caught. He found a way to return to the ship secretly and was caught by security while the ship was in port a few days later. For those who think Danielle didn't deserve it, don't worry too much about her. She eventually became famous, her internet video went viral, and she started a new career as the Pilgrim. And many of my favorite writers say life goes on. What do you think of our story today? I think that this part of the story was much more interesting than the first one, because in the first one we got to know the characters, but here everything is different. What's your opinion? Write in the comments. See you in the comments.